Pals, I think you're really going to enjoy this video. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe button and comment button. It really helps out. All right. Donald Trump called Kamala mentally ill. Lindsey Graham has some thoughts on that.
Let's talk about the Trump campaign, because I want to play something Trump said yesterday in a speech about Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to the border. Let's take a listen.
Kamala is mentally impaired. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. If you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country.
Okay.
I feel like he's like 2 seconds away from just calling her regarded.
So first of all, there are actual people out there with...
Look, if she's mentally disabled, why would you not want to demonstrate that via a debate? Why would you not want to debate a mentally disabled person? Feels like the perfect opportunity to demonstrate to the country that your opponent is mentally disabled by debating them.
Mental impairments, and that's insulting to them. Second of all, Vice President Kamala Harris is not mentally impaired.
No, I just think she's crazy liberal. I don't question her.
But what do you think about that rhetoric?
I just think the better course to take is to prosecute the case that her policies are destroying the country. They're crazy liberal. 400,000 people have been let loose in our country. 16,000 people convicted of being arrested. 13,000 convicted murderers, and
Okay, so he's repeating the same claim. So like, it's just frustrating because there are no consequences for this. Republicans, not just politicians, but media pundits and just regular people, Republicans and conservatives all over the weekend were repeating this lie, this misinterpretation of facts that Biden was intentionally allowing tens of thousands of violent criminals into the country. It's, you know, that was the big story going around on social media this weekend. And now that we have clarification from DHS that no, that's not what we said. This was a compilation of data that spanned 4 decades. And many of the people that were in this data set or whatever are in fact incarcerated, and none of them will be held to account. None of them will come out and say on their social media channels or in their news appearances in the coming days, none of them will come out and say, actually, I got that wrong. It's not the case. The damage is done. All of this is, you know, it's going to be really difficult to educate people that this claim was erroneous. It's not true. It's simply not true. What he's saying right now is not true.
400,000 of people generally convicted of crimes were released on her watch.
This is not true. This is just a falsehood. It's not a fabrication. But it's a misunderstanding of what DHS said a few days ago. It's wrong. It's false.
It's not going to get better.
So I saw that statistic. We dove into it, our fact checker. That statistic is actually over decades. So some of those people you're talking about are people that came into the country during Trump. And second of all, some of them are in prison. A lot of them are in prison not ICE prisons, but federal prisons for their...
Ooh, the live fact check. How does Lindsey Graham navigate this one?
For their crimes. I can tell you this, the man who killed Laken Riley in Georgia was released.
Bro, I mean, listen, I've said it before, but Lindsey Graham is actually really well media trained. He knows all the tricks really well. He's very good at the art of the pivot. You have to respect Lindsey Graham's ability to navigate these conversations. I mean, he just made a wild claim. He just claimed that the Biden administration let, I think, what did he say, 400,000 violent criminals into the country? And after he's fact-checked, he's like, oh, what about Laken Riley? What about this one person who was killed by an undocumented migrant?
By the Biden-Harris administration on parole because they had no capacity at the border to hold him. That's not a reason to parole people. I promise you, women have been raped and murdered. People have been hurt by illegal immigrants released into this country without detention. It is a nightmare. It is crazy. It's crazy to boycott a speech by the Prime Minister of Israel to a joint session of Congress thinking it won't embolden Iran. Well, it's crazy to withdraw from Afghanistan hoping things will be different this time. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, crazy stuff.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying she's crazy. I'm saying...
Well, she's not running on Green New Deal or Medicare for all.
Your party...
Nice, Nimrod. Appreciate it, buddy.
Crazy.
Okay, well, they're not my policies, and there's a whole lot of things you said there. I'll just say she didn't boycott.
She didn't show up.
She didn't show up. But let's focus on Trump's rhetoric, because that's what I'm actually asking you about, because...
the problems with the world are not Trump's rhetoric. They call him crazy. Pelosi wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment. Why don't you ever talk about that?
I got a question. My friend and I are going to go watch the VP debate, and she lives in Ireland. So since it's like 2 a.m. for her, she wants to turn it into a drinking game. I made a tweet post asking if you or your community would have any suggestions for criteria. I'm sure there will be drinking games like posted online, probably like Reddit. I'm actually a year and a half sober, so it's kind of up that you put me in that position. Thanks for that. Now I'm really craving. I might relapse today because of that. I could die because of this question. It's possible that I could die because of the question you just asked me. So that's pretty up. Relapse and drive stream. Jesus Christ. It's just such a silly thing that you see in media all the time. Whenever there's a character in a movie or a show that has quit drinking, there's this pervasive notion that if you bring up alcohol in any way around somebody who's in recovery, that it's this big taboo. And it's not. It's not at all. There's this idea that you're sitting here with like a year and a half clean, and then somebody offers you a drink, and then all of a sudden, you're going to get loaded. That's just not how it is. That's not going to be the thing that gets somebody to go out there and relapse. I mean, you get used to it after being in recovery for a while. You get used to not drinking. And so if somebody offers you or whatever, like some people will be like, no, thanks, I'm sober. And then most of the time, most people just say, no, I'm good. Like, I don't make it a point to say that anymore. I'll just say like, no, I'm good. Thank you. And that's it.
If I lose, I'll tell you what's possible, because they cheat. That's the only way we're going to lose, because they cheat. They cheat like hell.
Okay. So, in point of fact, it is anybody's. Tell me if you disagree with any of the statements I'm about to make. Okay. In point of fact, Harris could win or Trump could win.
True.
It's anybody's race.
True.
It's razor thin, and whoever wins, in all likelihood, it will not be because they cheated. It will. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of any cheating.
Well, mail-in balloting was a problem with COVID. I hope we fix that. I certified the last election because I listened to the allegations of cheating. I thought it fell short in terms of changing the outcome. I'm more focused on today and tomorrow, and here's what I would tell President Trump. When people look at the state of play, they trust you on the economy, the border, inflation, and foreign policy by wide margins. Focus on those
Focus
issues.
on those, and don't call Kamala Harris mentally disabled. That's your advice. One last thing. He has not agreed to do another presidential debate. Mm-hmm. Do you think that he should? For example, Kamala Harris has accepted CNN's invitation if they want to do another presidential debate. He liked the debate we did last time. He thought we were fair. He thought the rules were fair. Obviously, that was a very consequential debate. Should he do another debate?
I'm going to leave it up to him, but I'd like to see it myself because I think she's a mile wide and an inch deep. Look what's going on in the world. The world is literally on fire. They don't have a clue.
Okay, this makes me think that they got like a talking point, because like Republicans do get, they do get like talking points for media appearances and stuff. And so this is the second Republican in as many media appearances from this morning that said that the world is literally on fire. It's like, well, if we're really going to do that, then, technically isn't the world literally always on fire? Because there's got to be a fire going somewhere in the world 24/7, right?
They're paralyzed by fear when it comes to Iran. The world that
and now
Trump
they're doing this.
left us-
Now they're doing this thing with the hurricane, which a lot of that footage is horrific. Like some of these communities are devastated with extreme flooding. And now they're doing this thing. They did the exact same thing in Lahaina when that terrible fire happened and basically destroyed a historic city. They accuse Democrats of doing what Donald Trump did when he was president. When Donald Trump was president, he played politics. I've told you guys this so many times, but it pisses me off so much because it's like my home state. He played politics with federal aid for Californians who were ravaged by horrific wildfires. Thousands of homes were destroyed. People needed shelter. People needed medicine. People needed food. People needed clothes. And he played politics, and he temporarily held up aid to California. He played politics with federal emergency money. And Biden has not done that once. 0 times he's done that. Every time there's been some kind of a natural disaster in deep red states, Alabama, at this point, Florida, Mississippi, Texas. Within hours, Biden releases federally approved funds. And then they do this stuff where it's like, why are we sending billions of dollars to Ukraine when we got all these people? Well, look, Congress decides how much money gets allocated for federal disasters. And so it's not just the case that when you're the victim of a federal disaster, you get, it's some kind of a stipend in the first few days. I'm going to make up a number. It's $1,200 or something like that. But that's not all you get. So for example, in Lahaina, in Maui, where that massive fire was, they relocated citizens who had their homes burnt to the ground into hotels in surrounding cities. So my parents have a timeshare in Ka'anapali is the name of the city. It's right next to Lahaina. And it's this really nice resort. And a lot of people have been living in this resort for the last like year and a half, 2 years, whenever that fire happened. I don't know if there's people still living there, but they don't just get the initial stipend. They don't just get the initial $1,200. That's just to get people through the first few days, to make sure that people have their basic necessities met, but they're further eligible for aid when it comes to like housing and et cetera, medicine and all that. But Republicans will complain about us sending foreign aid to Ukraine. It's like, well, if you want people to get more money in an emergency, which I think I do too, right? Like that's probably a good idea, right? Somebody loses their house, we should probably give them more money than what we're giving them now. But that comes from Congress. Ask Congress for a bill if you want Biden to be able to give people more money. He literally can't give people more than an allocated amount. He can't just say, you know what, I'm going to give these people $5,000. You know what, I'm going to give these people $7,000. That has to come from Congress. It's just so stupid.
When he left office was mortgage rates below 3%, a secure border.
And these motherfuckers don't want to have a conversation about why these extreme weather events are happening with more frequency. They don't want to have that conversation about climate change, the impact of climate change. They don't want to have that. They don't want to have that conversation at all. And so I feel like this is their way of just trying to push away from that conversation. It's just like, whenever there's whenever there's a natural disaster, just immediately start accusing the Democratic president of withholding funds or not reacting fast enough. And you can see Biden approved federal emergency funds within hours. And he's done that for every single federal emergency that's happened on his watch. It is within 2-3 hours. He snaps his fingers and immediately you have FEMA headed into these states to try to help these people out. He's doing exactly what a president should do in every single instance of a natural disaster. And these people so dishonestly, sleazily accuse him of not helping red states enough. And he's never played politics with federal aid. Not once, not a single time. Donald Trump did. Donald Trump did the thing that they're accusing Biden of doing every single time there's a disaster. All they do is lie. All conservatives do is lie, just blatantly lie. And it's really difficult to contend with that. I don't know how to break through these lies. I don't. McCarthy, for example, back during the Red Scare and the Hollywood blacklist and all that, he spent a year and a half, 2 years just grilling people about their supposed ties to communism. And it finally took some guys just saying, at long last, have you no decency? And then there was a moment of reckoning for McCarthy back in the day. And I feel like we need one of those moments for the modern conservative project. We just need one of these moments where it's like, have you no decency to lie over and over and over and over and over and over again? Just a flat out lie. We need one of those moments. I don't know if one of those moments is possible in today's day and age. I don't know if we can break through.
Peace agreements, no war anywhere. I would like to see her explain how she's going to change things when she's been in charge for 4 years and hasn't changed anything.
She's obviously not been in charge for 4 years.
I'd like to know from her.
And nonetheless, a lot of things changed on Biden's watch. We cut childhood poverty in half on his watch.
Point of view, what did happen in the Mideast? Why do you think the world's on fire? Why do you think Russia invaded Ukraine? Have you not figured this out yet? That you're weak in the eyes of all of our enemies? And here's what I would say to Trump. If you do debate her, she is a mile wide and an inch deep, and you can prove that.
Joining us now.
Why didn't he do it the first time? If this is true, she's a mile wide and an inch deep. Why did she overwhelmingly win that debate, according to voters polled?
From Arizona, where he is campaigning for the Harris-Walz ticket, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and Governor, obviously, Senator Graham, Lindsey Graham, has some strong views on this campaign, saying that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, is a mile wide and an inch deep, and that she has a belief in policies that are, quote, I'm quoting here, bat crazy. Wanted to give you an opportunity to defend the ticket.
Well, thanks, Jake. And
well, I mean, the policies that he pointed to say that she supports policies that are bad crazy are the Green New Deal and Medicare for All. These are not policies that she's running on in 2024. Biden's policies are broadly popular. Was there a single bill that Biden signed into law that didn't have good approval ratings with voters? It's a serious question. So the ACA, for example, it took voters 8 years. 8 years. They passed the ACA in 2010, I believe, the beginning of 2010 or the end of 2009. And it took voters 8 years to like that policy. The ACA single-handedly was the reason why Democrats got clobbered in midterm elections following its passage. And it took voters 8 years to realize, actually, this is a good policy. I don't want to get rid of it. On Biden's watch, I mean, is there a single bill that Biden signed into law that was not popular with voters? They liked the infrastructure bill. They liked the ARP. They liked individual aspects of the ARP, like the extension of the child tax credit. They liked the Chips and Science Act. They liked the gun reform bill. They liked the Inflation Reduction Act. Give me a single policy, or maybe not policy, but piece of legislation that Biden signed into law that voters didn't like. The reason why he became ultimately an unpopular president was because of the economy. That was it. It wasn't because of policy. And when you look at Kamala's proposed policies, they are extremely popular with voters. Like the price gouging measure is extremely popular with voters. The $5,000 extension of the child tax credit, the $25,000 assistance for down payments, the $50,000 tax credit for small businesses. These are all policies that poll really well.
And, they have nothing on their side to talk about that's good for everyday Americans, for working families. That's why they're just name calling. That is what this is all about. You heard Donald Trump talk about mental impairment yesterday. I think whenever he says things like that, he's talking about himself, but trying to project it onto others. And all I can say is that, with a policy like a $6,000 child tax credit that'll help young families, $25,000 to help people who are first-time home buyers.
All of these are popular.
With a down payment, $50,000 tax break for people who are starting small businesses. Those are real policies.
Get me out there, man. I feel like I could be a good Kamala surrogate. Hire me. Somebody send this to the Kamala campaign. Hire me. I am good to go. I will be such a strong soldier for you on the battle lines. Battle lines? On the front lines of this information war.
That are good for Americans.
I forgot. We got the VP debate in 2 days, guys. Damn, that's going to be fun.
Everywhere, and their economic opportunity.
How are we feeling about... So here's the thing. I think I'm a little concerned about the VP debate. A little bit. Because JD Vance is he strikes me as a bit of a debate bro. And I don't know how much experience does Walz have with debates? Walz debate. Like I legitimately have no idea how he is in a debate. And Vance is thoroughly unlikable, but he's good at staying on message. He's good at getting his talking points and rehearsing them and blah, blah. He's good at staying on message. He's just thoroughly unlikable. And Walz is super likable. And that's reflected in, he's literally one of the most popular politicians in the entire country right now. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. He's like plus 15 or plus 20. And Vance is like negative 17 or whatever.
The cars that are on the road are going to be on the road for decades, but this transition to making sure that we're addressing greenhouse gases and following where the market is going. Many of the manufacturers, GM by 2035, will only be producing those vehicles. It's why Minnesota went on the initiative to make sure that we're going to be a state that builds the infrastructure necessary for the charging stations, making sure now that Minnesotans will have a choice of over 40 vehicles rather than the 8 that they were limited to. If you don't want to buy one, don't buy one. But if you're going to buy one...
Okay, never mind. I take it all back. I'm immediately impressed.
Minnesota, we have the opportunity to continue to grow our economy, to continue to make that transition, to understand that that is where the market and the climate is going.
Food source. Governor.
Relationships with the people in Minnesota. We do feed, fuel, and clothe the world. We've always been on the forefront. We're making that, balancing that chance between production and increasing production for a hungrier world, but also at the same time using working land conservation. I had the opportunity to be in Worthington this last Saturday, where we dedicated a new piece of land in the middle of some of the most productive farmland in Minnesota to allow for hunting and for habitat. In Minnesota, some of the things that we can do is, first and foremost, we passed the most robust agricultural budget this year and provided for some of the relief that climate change is bringing.
Okay, so it seems like he does a lot of prep. Like, you can tell that he was very well prepared for this debate. That's the most important thing when you're talking about debate, like a political debate. The most important thing you can do is prepare. Just be really prepared. Like, ideally, there shouldn't be a single question that you're not prepared for. There shouldn't be a single question that you haven't rehearsed some answer for. Nothing should take you by surprise. And at that point, it's just about grinding and just practicing over and over and over and over and over again. You know, as long as Walz can do that prep, and my understanding is that Pete Buttigieg has been standing in for JD Vance in their mock debates. In my mind, Buttigieg is probably like the most talented. Like, I'm fully convinced that Buttigieg is going to be the next nominee. Like, I'm fully convinced of it. I watched some stuff over the weekend with him, and I mean, he is just, he is on another level. So if you have somebody like him on your team helping you to prepare for a debate, that's a huge asset. You know, Buttigieg is probably doing for Walz what Republicans thought Tulsi was going to do for Trump. You know what I mean?